But today I want to deal with this concept of reset. As we enter into the new year, new time, it is time when people are at moments of reflection, moments of rethinking, moments of readjusting their life. So it is a moment of reset. And I really need to talk to you about your yes, but let's talk about this text first. We're in the book of Daniel. We're at the 6th chapter, 16th through 24th verse. It is a famous story. Daniel is a famous story in the Bible. Daniel and the lion's den. I mean, it is something we teach kids. We don't teach them the 24th verse. We just teach them till the 23rd verse. But let's read the text for you. It'll be on the screen if you don't have a Bible or app. And it says, Then the king commanded, and Daniel was brought and cast into the den of lions. The king declared to Daniel, May your God whom you serve continually deliver you. And a stone was brought and laid out on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that nothing might be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. No diversions were brought to him, and sleep fled from him. Then at the break of day, the king arose and went in haste to the den of the lions. And as he came near to the den where Daniel was, he cried out in a tone of anguish. The king declared to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to deliver you from the lions? Then Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. My God sent his angels and shut the lions' mouths. And they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him and also before you. O king, I have done no harm. Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. And the king commanded that those men who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and cast into the den of lions, they, their children, and their wives. And before they reached the bottom of the den, the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones into pieces. So I just want to talk about reset today, but I want to talk about resetting your yes, resetting your yes. I like TikTok. I know it might be spy software, but I like it. And one of the things that I love about TikTok is the satire that you can find on it. And one of the favorite ones, I love Gen Z because they're so witty. They are so witty. If you've ever had a chance and heard about Corporate Aaron, yes, oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. Corporate Aaron, she talks in the speak of corporate. She says a lot and says nothing all at the same time. She can do a whole video for 3 minutes about a meeting, and she'll talk about it, and there'll be nothing said. And I had it was like almost deja vu, like I had lived her life, and I was like, oh, this is pretty funny. But the one I really like is Mr. DeAndre Brown. I like Mr. DeAndre Brown. He is very much a genius of comedy. You know, he says, he talked about end of year, and he says, we can't work, you know, it's off for the end of the year. I'm from Thanksgiving through Christmas. I'm done. I was like, dang, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. The other one he says is PTO, and not personal time off, is prepare the others. Don't call me. Don't tell anybody about me. Just prepare the others so that I can take my personal time off. Prepare the others. But the one that struck me and it struck a tone in my head is one day he said, we have it wrong. We write there is a work-life balance. And he says, this is wrong. Who conned us and convinced us that work was first and life was second? Who said that the 9 to 5 was the defining, well, it's 9 to whatever, some of us is 7 to, you know what I'm talking about. The job has become the defining feature of our life. He said, no, I need a life-work balance. At 4:30, I'm closing my computer. 5, if I feel generous, you're not going to get another email from me. Don't call me. It's my time. I put my life in front of my work because I need to have my family and my health and my happiness before your profit. So many of us have been conned and fooled that our first yes is to a corporation, a company, a place, or a job. I'm here to tell you, it helps feed you and do things, but it's not your first yes. Your life is more important. But right now, I need to challenge you and ask, where is your faith in your life? What does your faith-life balance look like? So many of us, faith is quite simply something we do on Sunday. Pastor, the choir sings, they sing beautifully. And they sing beautifully every week. And people are like, the music is what I come for. Some are here because the sermons are great. Some are just here because it's a great community. It doesn't matter. It's just that this thing we do is probably just an hour to 2 hours. If the preacher's timer is right, we'll be done by 10:45 today. It is only an hour and 15 minutes of your time. And then we go back to life and we come back the next week, haggard, beat up, tired, dejected, run down, and we wonder why, because our faith-life balance has become our life faith. Life faith. I'm walking it out. Our life will happen and our faith is last. So as we start talking about resetting, I want to give you an example of someone who said yes. I'm challenging people to have a strong yes to their faith in 2024. The faith can't be a secondary afterthought, back burner. There we go. I volunteer. I don't serve at church. I volunteer at church. I'm a good person. No, faith requires more. So I want to spend some time and talk about Daniel and his strong yes. To bring you up to speed, Daniel is part of the generations that were exiled in Babylon from Jerusalem. Daniel is known for being a very smart, articulate, handsome young man, and God has elevated him even though he is in captivity. He's going through King Nebuchadnezzar, and now he's on to King Darius. He is made one of the 120 satraps. Those are lords, leaders, governors of the regions of the kingdom. God continues to have his hand even though he is in Babylon. God has his hand on him, and he starts really expanding and allowing him to be very successful among his 120 peers. I know some of you are like, what does that mean, Pastor? You've been on your job, you're just doing your job, and some reason God keeps highlighting you for the good things, and you got some people looking at you talking about hating you. I don't know why he always got to do his job, making the rest of us look bad. Well, keep on keeping on, because that's what God has called you to do. Well, the trifling people, the haters, the people around him that didn't like what he was doing, those that were passive aggressive, they said, I know how we're going to catch this Daniel guy. I know we're going to say, King Darius, we know that you are king and you are first to be worshiped. And we know that if everybody should worship you first, if they don't, they should be thrown in the lion's den. But Daniel gets to a point in his life where he understands, I don't care who's there. I don't care who they are. I am going to have to give my prayer to God. They set him up. They thought they had him. And then he prays. in public. Doesn't hide it. He didn't say, let me go in the bathroom, let me cover it up, let me not offend nobody with my prayers, let me not put myself in a bad place. Daniel says, let me pray like I've always prayed. He prays like he's always prayed, and they set him up. And of course, they put the king. They say, king, we got you. We know Daniel's your favorite, but you can't reverse your edict. And they throw him into the lion's den. What's interesting is that for some people, what is a petting zoo is a lion's den. They threw Daniel in. He was at the petting zoo because God had closed the mouth of the lion. The king went home and fasted and prayed and came back the next morning and said, Daniel, said, God got me. I'm still here. And he is released. And then they throw in those that hated against him, those that would plot his downfall, those that were his enemies, those that had set up the lion's den. They threw him in there. And let me tell you, some people's petting zoo is other people's lion's den. Because when God has you, what your enemy thought was going to end you will end them. Let's talk a little bit. There's a few points I want to lift out of the text. And I want, as I talk about the yes that he has, the first yes was Daniel understood his source. Many people today are confused of what their source is. Many people today are confused on how they're going to make it, how they're going to get through. Many people today have replaced what is their source with what they think is going to help them. You know, one of the things when you live in affluent communities is that we have resources. And some of us say, I'm not really that rich. Well, if you go to the rest of America, you're not doing that bad. Trust me this, I'm going to tell you this. If you go to some other places in America, you are not doing that bad. I've had the privilege of flying all up and down, driven some back roads, some front roads, been into some urban environments and some rural environments. And the one thing we do have is some resources. So us here, we will go get a course, go get a therapist, go get a plan, go talk to somebody, go buy this, go on a vacation, go on this, go on that. We've done everything to replenish us, to help us in difficult situations. But many of us miss that the source that got us where we were was Jesus. Well, some of you might say, well, you know, Pastor, I backslid or I never accepted Jesus. And I'm glad you bring that point up because as good Methodists, we believe in prevenient grace. What is prevenient grace? That God loved you even though you haven't said yes. I'm one of those that is a recipient of prevenient grace. In my 20s, I was not that church. As a matter of fact, the only time you saw me at church was when my mother and father would invite me on Thursday, call me on Friday, call me on Saturday, call me Sunday morning twice, make sure the phone is on, and I would just get there just in time to be there for the sermon. But, you know, God kept me from my own foolishness. Some of us will not want to admit this, but our Saturday night proclivities will get in our way of our Sunday morning worship and it'll mess us up. Some of us will have done dangerous things in our life and we wonder, how did we make it? And the only reason we made it was because Jesus was on our side before we even needed Jesus on our side. When I look back over my life and I look at the situations, challenges, problems, concerns, and things that I faced, even before I walked into the building, Jesus was there. I need to let you know that we go into a world now. I was sitting there, I was talking to somebody, one of the most smartest men I know, great analyst, and he said, you know, we live in a world where war is more real than it's ever been. Where economic uncertainty is crazier than it's ever been. Where political uncertainty is the norm, not political stability. And right now, I say the greatest time for the church is right now, because Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Jesus has shown up for 2,000 years for billions of people, and he's going to show up until he comes for more people. I don't know about you, but you've been leaning your tent post on the stock market. You've been leaning your tent post on your job. You've been leaning your tent post on some other situation, and you wonder why you feel so unstable, shifting back and forth, because your source is Jesus. But Daniel didn't just know his source. I believe there are a lot of Christians that know their source. He publicly acclaimed his source. Now, I need to be clear on how he acclaimed it, because some people are going to say to me, Pastor, what do you mean he publicly acclaimed it? His actions were his faith actions. You know, some people would read that point and be like, what do you mean, Pastor? How does he publicly claim it? He didn't badger them. He didn't tell them they was Christians. He didn't beat them up and say, you need to come to church. He didn't do all of that. What he basically did was just live the life of a believer. He lived it so much that they set the trap for him because he was Christian, because he was a believer. How many of us could that be said of? That the people around us know us by our actions, not by what we say, not by the events we invite them to, not what we tell them, but by our walk. I need you to understand on this Sunday morning, this day, today, that when you walk in this world, you've got to walk with a manner and a demeanor that is attractive or unattractive to some, that lifts up your Savior, Jesus Christ. I can't do everything they did. I can't be involved in everything they're involved in. How does it look? And curious people like, give me an example, Pastor. Jesus saved me. He is my redeemer, but I lead the gossip around the water cooler. I am the lead gossiper. I am the one that if you need to know about X, Y, Z, and so, you need to come call me. Because I am a Christian. Is that really what Christians are? I am the one with the quickest temper. I will cuss you out. I will be the first to let you know all about yourself. Oh, if you get on my last nerve, I'm the first to be quiet and shut you out with silent scorn. Am I really Christian? First at the club, last to leave. I mastered bottle service. Not that drinking is bad, but are you really living your life if you're leading them to the club? Or if you are always the chief bystander, you see people abusing power, you see people being malicious and nasty, and all you ever do is just stand there. Are you Christian? What does that mean? Will anybody be attracted to that? I got a call the other day. Somebody said, did you hear about this? I was like, no, you the first one to tell me. And they were like, you never hear about nothing that's going on in the church and the denomination. I go, you're right. Because people know when you call me, I ain't got no answers. I didn't hear about it. And I'm not going to tell it to nobody else. I'm a dead end, a dead line, and a dead phone. We, as Christians, in our yes, have to be different from the world. The American church has spent so much time trying to make cultural Christianity seem acceptable, like we could just be like the rest, while Christianity has been countercultural for its entire existence. He didn't say, walk the easy way. He said, take up my cross. Take up my burden. It's light, but take it up. Your yes to God is not just the moments you spend in the sanctuary, not just the moments you spend in your silent time. It is based on your decisions as you go through your life. I remember somebody said, Christmas came, and we said, okay, we're going to invite people from the community to come. And I don't tell people I'm a pastor because they get weird. Even if they don't believe, they just get weird. Because they think I'm going to ask them for something, or they think they're guilty of sin and they want to confess. I'm like, I'm not that kind. I'm not that guy. I like video games. I like sneakers. I'm regular, right? I just talk on Sundays. Amen. So interestingly enough, we start sharing with people that are friends of my son, their parents. I want you to come to Christmas Eve. It's beautiful. It's great for the family. We have 5 families show up just because of how we carried ourselves, not because we badgered them about church, not because I'm not persuasive. I live in Silicon Valley. Talking about Christianity is not a persuasive thing. It's just being in the space. I need to let you all know that you declare your Christianity in your small actions, not by your mouth. So many of us can declare in loud voices on Sunday, but all our little actions in the week don't. Now, somebody says to me, Pastor, that's rough. Well, I know. I'm grateful for grace and mercy. Grace got me here because I'm not perfect, but mercy keeps me as I walk down the path. I am not perfect. I don't want to give you the impression I'm perfect. You're not perfect. But what I'm glad is that God is in the process of perfecting our faith and allowing us to walk the path. So my hope for each and every one of you this year, as you say yes in a more intentional way in your life, is that each day you get one step a little better. Even if the people in your life don't want to admit it, at least you tried one time each day. Be just a little better and just be a little bit more Christian. All I have to say to you is that if you trust God and start taking the steps to live your life, and you start declaring and acclaiming Him in your life, things will start changing. So in this January, by the time you get to December, if your yes is in your small things, you will see blessings in your life. Now, I'll say this. What is the benefit of your yes? I believe God fights your battles when you say yes. It's there in the text. Daniel gets thrown into the lion's den. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been to the zoo. I've seen lions. You've seen them on safari. So there was no glass. There was no cage. They were there. Oh, you're crazy. I don't. No. I need to go to like the zoo with the glass and the cage and the moat. And when you see a lion actually, I'm 5'6.5". Don't forget the half. No, I can't lie. The lion, it stands about my height. It weighs almost a ton. It has teeth that are sharp. So now, he's about to get thrown in there. Now, I don't know about you, but I bet about 95% of people say, oh, which God? I'm good. But what it reports is he never complains as he's thrown into the lion's den. Gets there, and he spends the whole night in the lion's den. Now, you have to understand something about lion's den. Lions brought their prey back to their den. So he's not lying in a nice, clean place. He sees the bones of antelopes and the last prisoner that got thrown and some other. He's in a messy, nasty place, and he's been thrown there, and he's there all night. And the lion doesn't attack him. And the next day, the king comes. The king is actually more worried than Daniel. Read the text. It doesn't say Daniel gets thrown into the den and he starts praying and fasting. It says, no, the king threw him in the den and then he starts praying and fasting. And the next day he comes and he calls, and Daniel's there and he's alive. And then his enemies that threw him, now they're in the den. So there's a few critical things about this. The first thing is that when you face imminent danger, God will protect you. I've been facing battles in my life for years, and there's sometimes it's not that I'm scared, but I have anxiety and stress around certain things that I have to face. Like it'll keep you up at night. And what I've realized is that sometimes the best thing I can do is give it to God, because I can't control the result of what's about to happen. And sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm looking at decisions in the church and in my personal life, and I feel like I'm about to be swallowed and eaten up. And all I can do, I don't have any other resources. I don't have an arrow, a bow, a friend, a cousin. I don't have nothing that's going to help me out. And I just stand right there and I say, I got to trust God now, because I have nothing left. And I don't know if that's anybody else's experience, but you felt life come around you like the jaw of a lion that's about to bite you off. And the only thing that stopped it from happening was the goodness of God. If you have a testimony that God has done that in your life, I just need you to clap your hands and raise your voice, because somebody else needs to know that this is not just a preaching example, but this is the reality of somebody's existence. The other thing, so interesting, is that God will have people praying and pulling for you that you never knew will pull for you. Carrie's, I was a pretty new pastor to this church, pretty new. And I said, our roof was leaking. So I got here in 2013. It doesn't leak anymore, everybody. This story ends up well. Got here in 2013, and we were in the middle of a drought. So I prayed to keep the drought going. God is able. He kept it going until 2016. I was the only person in California happy about the drought, because I knew, we have about 5 different buckets. Like some of y'all are sitting in my bucket spots. And then I said, God, we're gonna do a fundraiser. We need to raise $40,000. That time our budget was $150,000. I'm like, $40,000. I don't know if we're gonna raise this. We said we're only gonna do it for 6 weeks. We're not gonna do anything else. And the church responded, and we got 40. But I was standing somewhere with Sister Brenda Johnson, and I got a phone call, and this man says, "You don't know me, but somebody showed me that you needed a new roof. I'm going to send you a check for the entire amount." I couldn't have called him. I didn't know him. He has never given again. He's a very nice man. But all I know is that God can sometimes have people in unexpected places praying for you. So many of you go through life and think that you got it all together, but what you don't realize is God is architecting people around you, above you, beside you, below you, to pray, push, and pull for you. And what I need you to know is that they might not all be believers, they might not all be Christians, but God can use anybody to open doors for you. And I'm a witness right now that if you trust God, he will use the unexpected to bless you. Now, the last thing that happened tonight, I just love this piece, Lori. I guess this is my flesh coming out. Is God will take care of your enemies. Now, think about this, Carries. David could have played politics. He's the highest ranking satrap of the 120. He could have gone to the king and said, look. It's a setup. They tried to play you. You need to get rid of them. But he doesn't. He let God fight his battle. So, he didn't say anything. He didn't do anything against them. He let God fight the battle, and he threw them into the pit. And they died. He didn't ask them to do that. He didn't tell them to do that. He let God fight his battles. Some of us have wasted too much of our own energy fighting enemies that are not ours to fight. We lose sleep. We're tired. We're frustrated. And sometimes you just got to give it time in God. The first one is time. Leave it to God's time. They'll mess themselves up and let God fight your battles. I need somebody that's going on the unusual attack from weird places at your job, in your family, in your home, to know that that battle that you're trying to fight, you need to put to the side and let God fight. You just need to lift your head up, walk in there straight, and act unbothered. They'll be puzzled, perplexed, and confused. Why is he or she not responding to my foolishness, my pettiness, my passive aggressiveness? Because God has told me that at the end of this situation, you will be the one in the lion den and I will be the one set free. So I just need somebody to give praise right now ahead of time for the victory that's about to come. University, I need you in this 2024 to reset your yes. For some of us, it's either accepting Jesus or re-engaging with Jesus. Let me tell you, don't let guilt, shame, or doubt hold you back from what could be the best decision of your life. For some of us, it's engaging with the church. Listen, you can volunteer anywhere you want. I sit on enough boards of charities. We love volunteers. But the one thing I've learned is that when I serve in God's house, it has unintentional things in my life. When I show up on Sunday, when I show up for other things, it's not because I volunteer. It's because I serve a living Savior. For some of us, it's resetting what and how we do in the kingdom. You know, one of the interesting things, I'll tell you the story. I ran an audio video integration firm for most of my secular marketplace life. And when I went to Greater Centennial, they said, "You want to be in charge of the technology?" And I said, "No." I got 40 people that I manage throughout the week with this. But what God was calling me to was young adults and men's and other community, because that's what God had put in my soul for his service. Sometimes it's for us to reevaluate where we serve, not based on our skill, but based on what God has put in our heart. You know, I know that as we go into the year, we have a lot going on. But I encourage you this January and early February of reset. Watch football. I don't watch football. I really try not to. Go 49ers. But I was reading an interesting story. The Detroit Lions had been infamously known for not winning a playoff game in almost 30 or 40 years. A young lady came and took it over. Her dad and her brother ran the organization. And after they had a blowout season where they just sucked wind, they were bad. They were bad. She did an infamous interview where her hands were in her head. And she determined in her heart to reset everything in that organization. So she brought in new personnel. She brought in new attitudes. Even the coach, as he was giving his initial interview, people were making fun of him because of the new attitude he brought to the building. They said, he is not going to make it. 2 weeks ago, they won their first playoff game in 30 years. Many of us need to be like that young lady. We're already inside shaking our heads, knowing that we're about to go into another season. But it's time for a reset. Different attitudes, different focus, different personnel in our lives. So may we please stand.